to the cloud. Okay, everybody, we will have more people join us. I'd like to welcome you to our entertainment industry career convo. It's the twos of all Tuesdays. It's 22222, which is crazy to me, but love hearing that. We've got our entertainment industry webinar. At any point, if you need to contact me, we're going to use the chat, but we're going to jump right in to what we have. I've got some virtual housekeeping as we start this out in all webinars. Oh, I think I've skipped ahead. Hold on. Yeah, as we start this out with all webinars, I want to say thank you to our guest panelists. Like all of you, they have work and lives and everything, and they generously gave their time to share with PUC school students. So thank you so much for being here. You've got the opportunity to ask questions, so use that opportunity. I will be minding the chat, so if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we will be able to address them towards the end of our webinar. And then we also have a feedback survey that I will post. It is a quick 5 questions. I ask you to please complete that survey at the end, just so that we can get better. This is number 5 of our 10-week series, and we read every single person's response and want to make sure that we adapt to what you need and make sure we make it happen. So let's kick this off. We've got some PUC introductions. We've got some marriage and family therapy trainees on here, so thank y'all for being here. My colleague Brando isn't able to make it. We're having internet issues at his location, but my name is Nicole Murphy, and I'm the Director of School and College Counseling, which all that means is I get to have the fun of putting these webinars together to support you with figuring out what you want to do when you grow up, when you get older, and also just getting some insight on how people do it. How do we all figure this game of figuring out what you want to be? We have amazing expert panelists today that I'd like to introduce. Miss Barbara Roy, Senior Account Executive at Larson's Communication. Thank you for being here, Barbara. I hope your audio is working soon. I see some connection issues that we might be dealing with. We've got Miss Megan Tellis. Thank you for being here. And we've got Miss Jen Vaughn from LACC. Really appreciate all 3 of you making the time for PUC Schools students. As all of you know, why do we have these webinars? Bottom line, we want to make sure that you're not asking someone who hasn't really been there, done that, about what it's like to be a TV reporter or to be in PR or to be in cinema and TV. We've got actual experts here that can give you the information on required training. What's it really like in the field? What does it really look like to do that job at the beginning of your career as opposed to once you're more experienced? And tips on what you could do now. We have everyone that could be in ages 6 through college that will be able to watch this webinar either live or recorded. And we want to make sure that you know what you can do now to be a competitive applicant. These are all very, very competitive fields, and we want to give you the leg up on the competition with hearing from our experts. So let's dive right in. We've got our panel, and I think Barbara, you might be having some audio issues, so we're gonna get to you as soon as we can. But I always like this part of it. So you try and figure out what you want to do when you get older, and I always like hearing the story, the backstory as to what did our experts maybe think what they wanted to be in high school, and how did they figure out and get to where they are today. And I think this is one of my most favorite parts of the webinars, because we get to hear the backstory as to how they got to where they are today. I'm going to ask Ms. Tellis, would you please kick it off and share your story? And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Nicole, for having me. Yeah, of course. And thank you, everyone. I see there are 20 participants here. So hello, all 20 of you. I wish you could see your face, see you guys, hug you guys, encourage you guys, and let you know that if you just follow your passion and you can kind of pinpoint what that passion is, I think you probably, if you go back in time and think about the things that make you tick, the things that have always gotten you really excited, I think those are signs of passion. And if you do that with life, if you take that and try to make it into a career of some sort, then you will never work a day in your life, as they say, right? So for myself, I'm an Army brat, which just means my father served 21 years in the US Army, which means that I had the opportunity and the privilege of traveling the world when I was little. And my passion really started showing signs. I didn't realize till later in life, but I was able to pinpoint it to when I was a kid. And we would live on military bases, one of them being Fort Rucker, Alabama. And we would have tornadoes in the deep South, very different from where my family and where I was born and raised, which was here in Southern California. But we'd spent some time in the South and over in Germany. And when we were in the South on Fort Rucker, the tornadoes would rip through and the sirens on the base would go off. And it was like, if you've never been to the deep South, it's kind of like, wait, what? What is that lifestyle? But we would just be having an average day, and then the skies would turn purple, and all of a sudden these sirens would go off. And that meant get to your house, get to the nearest bathtub in your home, the nearest small closet, and hide, because if a tornado ripped through, your house could go to shambles and you want to survive. So I know that sounds terrifying, but as a young kid, when I would hear the sirens, I would get this like excitement in my stomach. And I just knew that there was something, breaking news was happening, and I wanted to be in the know. So I would turn the radio on, turn the weather channel on, and I'd listen. Mom and Dad, they say wind speeds are coming at 90 miles an hour. And I would just get weirdly excited about this while the other kids are freaking out. And I remember that. And I didn't correlate that with one day wanting to be a news reporter. But if you look back, you go, oh, okay, she really had this desire to be a source of information in a time where people were in need of it. And then that, later in life, when I got back to Southern California and in elementary school, I always wanted to be in leadership. I would be the first to raise my hand in class to read out loud. I loved public speaking. And then when I got to high school, I did the morning announcements. I was like one of the only ones to volunteer to do that. And then I really wanted to speak at graduation. There was always signs of it. And I learned that I had a comfortability that most everyone else did not have. And I wanted to run with that, because if it was comfortable to me and it was so normal to speak in front of people to me, then maybe I should try to make money doing that, right? And so I applied to college. I really wanted to go to USC, Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. And to my devastation, after having straight A's and being in student council and ASB president and cheerleader and played soccer, all the things you would think to get into a top university, I didn't get it. And I was crushed. And I thought this was the end of my life at the time, the end of my desires to want to be a TV news reporter. And so I went to San Diego State, and 2 years in, I said, I got to do something to stand out so I can reapply to USC. Long story short, the Oscars, the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences, the people who give people awards for being really great in movies, they were flying this competition. Who wants to be the next college correspondent on the red carpet? You have to submit a video explaining why you feel you're the best to do the job. So I mentioned, long story short, I made it to the red carpet that year. I submitted a video, and with the help of my community back at home, knowing that this is what I wanted to do with my life, is be a TV reporter, they voted for me online. And I got to the red carpet. I got to shake hands with all the news people that I grew up watching on TV in Los Angeles firsthand. And I went up to George Pinocchio at ABC7, who I'd grown up watching and wanting to be. And I said, if I ever make it to USC, can I be your intern? And he shook my hand. And he said, here's my card. Call me, kid, if you ever make it there. So I go back to SDSU, San Diego State, and okay, I was having the time of my life. I was in a sorority. I was living it up. I was pledge class president, always wanting to be something top of class. And I said, but I got to reapply to SC Annenberg, because if I get in, I know I can intern with George at ABC7, intern at 2/9, intern at Fox, intern at KTLA. I could do all the things I want to do, and that could catapult me into my career. So I did just that. Long story short, I got in. Long story short, I called up George Pinocchio. I said, I'm the kid you shook the hand, remember, on the red carpet last year? He said, come be my intern. So I was his intern. He took me to Dancing with the Stars. He took me back to the Oscars. Long story short, here I am 10 years later after that experience. And I made it back to Los Angeles as a TV news reporter. That's after I interned the rest of my time through college. I started my career in Las Vegas behind the scenes, then worked my way on camera, worked hard on all these different shows, got to Sacramento to be the morning anchor. And that's when KTLA recruited me 3 years ago. And so I've been on the air here in Los Angeles, in my hometown. I married my high school sweetheart. All the things have fallen into place, but that's all because I followed my passion. And so my big message when I'm talking to people, this isn't to encourage you to become the next TV news reporter. That's not it at all. My encouragement is find the thing that makes you tick, that keeps you up at night, that the idea of it you're always tasting and yearning and hungry for, because if you get to do that, I can tell you I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so fulfilled. I'm a mother of a 2-year-old, and I'm doing exactly what I love. And now it's always about the bigger dreams, right? But the fact of the matter is I made it back to what I wanted to do, even though I thought my dreams were crushed when I didn't get into college. So that's my story. I can answer so many questions, but Nicole, take it from here.
Thank you so much, Megan. And I appreciate sharing, so many kids have that. And especially at this time of year, we're starting to get college admissions and they think like life is over, nothing else matters. So thank you for sharing that information along with your story. You know what? Barbara, can you hear me?
Yes, hi. I'm so sorry about that. I can hear you.
You're perfect. We've just been talking. We're glad that you're on. And please, we're just following Megan here, sharing our story, your story on how you got to where you are today. And when you were in high school, what did you want to do? And how did it all end up?
Yeah. It's interesting. I started out not really sure what I wanted to do. I kind of was between a few different lanes. I was like, there was a part of me that was like, maybe I might want to be like a college professor of English literature because I love reading. I'm a total bookworm. There's another part of me that was like, I love writing and I love really great storytelling. I did a lot of theater growing up. In my high school, we had an incredible theater department. So I thought maybe I want to go that direction. The only thing that I knew is that I wanted to be involved in telling stories. I was just like, whatever that is, like, I was never one of those people who was like, this is what I want to do, exactly what I want to do. But I knew that storytelling just was always something that would just capture me. I love that feeling of just being taken away into a really great story, great characters, something that just kind of just takes you on a journey. And so I knew whatever I ended up doing, I wanted to kind of go in that direction. So I ended up I grew up in Massachusetts, in Cambridge, a college town, a lot of academics. And I was like, maybe I think I want to get out of that world. And so I wanted to go to UCLA. That was my dream school, but my parents said, nope, it's too far. So the farthest they let me go was Virginia. So into the University of Virginia, and I majored in English Lit. And after I graduated, I made a beeline for California, for LA. And I was like, I knew that I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something in, like I said, in storytelling. So I ended up working for a documentary company. We did music documentaries. We did a documentary on Death Row Records, and we did a documentary on, we ended up actually working for the Recording Academy doing the Lifetime Achievement Awards for the Grammys. And it was a different kind of storytelling through music, but it was something where I learned so much. I learned so much about production. I learned about, how to tell stories in different ways and in different genres. And I didn't really know, I still was like, not sure, did I want to go towards, being a writer, being a director? Which direction did I want to go? Somewhere along the way, I got married and I had my first son. And I was kind of really going deep into production when he was born. And, this was something where I think it's interesting with people's journeys, as sometimes, life intervenes, things happen, and it changes the trajectory of where you're going to go. But there was always this through line of storytelling. And so I ended up, after I came back from maternity leave, I thought, I don't know if I want to be at an edit bay at 1 a.m, trying to piece together this, hot deadline that we have to get out to our editing team. So I decided I was going to try something a little different, and I knew I wanted to stay in entertainment, and an opportunity came up to work in publicity at Disney. So I ended up kind of pivoting and working as an assistant to the vice president of publicity for Disney Channel. And it was, again, different type of storytelling, but I actually kind of fell in love with it because I learned how to find really compelling, exciting, interesting ways to find the meat of a story and see how we could kind of amplify it and bring it out to the media in a way that's compelling, in a way that, that matters and that's going to, resonate with a producer, with an editor, with a booker. And so that's how I got into publicity. I stayed in Disney for about 7 years, had my second daughter, took a little bit of time off, did some freelancing for a while, worked at ABC Television, went back to Disney for a while, did some freelance for Netflix. So I've been around, and I've been, it's definitely been a journey, but I will say that, there are some people who know exactly what they want, and they have a very clear and direct path. And for me, like I said, it's always been about the story, but it's taken me in a lot of different directions and a lot of different types of jobs. And that's really okay. I wouldn't change a thing. I love that I've always followed my passion, but I've allowed my passion to take me in a lot of different directions. And I've learned from every single job I've ever had, even if the job has been in a very different industry. And now I work in education, in media, but for a company that works mostly with schools. So I kind of shifted, like during the pandemic. I think I'm kind of ready for something a little different, still following my love for communications work, but outside of entertainment and in education. So I think that it's easy to think that, you have to know exactly what your passion is. You don't have to know what your passion is. I think it's just follow what speaks to you and what makes you excited, what really interests you, and be open to what opportunities come from that. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Jen, you want to round out this trio, please?
Sure. Well, my origin story begins when I went to my first Oakland Raiders game. And I like to say that today I wouldn't be a college professor if it wasn't for the Oakland Raiders, because I grew up just, caring a little bit about sports, but not really. It wasn't until I went to a Raiders game and I was like, wow, this is what being a sports fan is all about. And this was right around the time about my senior year of high school, where I was really trying to figure out what my passion was, what I was excited about. I spent the last couple of years in high school, focusing on extracurricular activities, we'll call them, not so much my studies, but anything that would keep me from my studies. And by the time I got to senior year, I was like, oh no, if I don't get my grades up, I'm not going to get into college. So I ended up entering my senior year into a video production class where it combined government and economics with video production. And these were two topics that I really had very little interest in. But it turns out being able to tell the story through the use of a video camera and an editing machine was something that really got me excited. And that year, I just completely went from being like a 2.0 student to a straight A 4.0 student, and was able to get my grades up high enough to actually start applying for schools. And much like Megan and Barbara, the schools that I wanted didn't necessarily want me at first, but that's okay. And when I was applying for schools, I was looking into programs in the field of health. I thought, well, I want to be a nurse. I want to major in nursing and minor in Spanish. And I had a family member ask me, well, why do you want to be a nurse? And I said, well, there's always going to be jobs for nurses. And if I'm bilingual, then I'll make more money. And she said, well, have you ever thought about doing something you love? I was like, no, like that hadn't even occurred to me at the point. I was just thinking, get a job, get money, move on to the next step. And that was right around the time where I really started getting into sports. I really started loving video production and editing. So I completely changed the programs I was applying for. And I got accepted to San Francisco State as an undeclared major, kept that really good work ethic my first 2 years of college, kept getting good grades, passing all my classes, got right into their broadcast and communication program. And that's where my love for sports broadcasting came into play. I didn't go to college thinking I wanted to be a professor or end up as a department chair. I actually wanted to go into live TV. So my first gigs right out of my undergraduate and graduate studies were to part-time be a graduate assistant. So I was teaching in our TV studio. And then also part-time, I was interning wherever I could get my foot in the door. One of my first internships was at a news station. So that's where I learned I never wanted to be an engineer at a news station, but I really got a great background for what happens inside a news station. And then a few years after that, I got my next big break working for Pac-12 networks. And as Megan and Barbara mentioned, Pac-12 schools like USC, UCLA, these are all the Division I sports schools in the West Coast. And I ended up getting a job there as an editor. And I loved it. This was the first time I wasn't editing on my own tiny computer, but I was in like a really nice plush soundproof booth, and they had all the craft services and coffee breaks I could take. And I was surrounded by people who like to do what I like to do. And then that gig got me a chance to get into being a technical director. And if you've ever watched a live sports event or news or talk shows, anything that's being broadcast live is being cut. All the shots are being edited together in a truck. So the person who does that switching is called a technical director, where they're adding the graphics, they're cutting from cameras, they're taking all the roll-ins that have been preloaded and cutting to them and rolling them live. And that's where I really thrived. I love the pressure of live TV. I love the adrenaline you got doing live TV. You really can't mess up because everybody's watching. So the reason I found myself at Pac-12 Networks was because this love for sports and my love for TV developed in high school. But I don't think I really ever would have pursued that path if somebody didn't just pause and question, like, have you ever thought about doing something you love? And it just completely changed the trajectory of my life. So to echo what Barbara and Megan said, you might not know what your passion is, but when you do find it, chase it. And it might not take you right there on a direct beeline. You might have some curves along the way, but that's okay. It's all part of the experience, and it's all things that you're going to pick up along the way. Fast forward from Pac-12 Networks, I thought, oh gosh, I really want to move to LA, but I didn't have a network down here. I didn't really know anybody in the industry. And I was really afraid to give up my secure job and just move down here on a whim. And it turns out an engineer that I knew at San Francisco State said, hey, LACC is hiring in TV production. Why don't you give it a shot? And I thought, well, okay, maybe if I apply for this job, it'll make my other boss want me more and give me a raise. So I told my other boss that I was applying for this job, and they're like, oh, you'd be great at it. Yeah, go for it. If you need any support, let me know. And they ended up helping me mentor on the interview process. And when I interviewed for the job, I did it through Skype. This was way before video conferencing was popular. I was the only candidate to do a Skype interview. And I just blew them away with my passion, my enthusiasm. I also had enough combination of education and real world experience that they were like, yes, this is what we want. We want somebody who has all of your qualities. And I got the job, moved down, and really have been thriving in LA ever since. And it turns out I'm still able to grow my network here. The Pac-12 network has schools in Southern California. And now I'm able to use those connections to get my students' feet in the door, because they're always looking for students who know how to wrap cable, want to be camera operators, want to be behind the scenes. And it's just been so great to see the network that I grew in San Francisco continue to thrive here in LA. That's my origin story.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jen. And yeah, I think if I was a student hearing this, I hope y'all take a breath, because so many people are paralyzed with that. You can be anything you want when you grow up. Now pick a major and apply. It's like, wait, whoa, there's a lot going on. And I think that your experiences kind of share that you can definitely know, or you can kind of zigzag and take a minute to figure it out. But I think one thing you all took advantage of is working your tails off and taking advantage of every opportunity and networking. Those are three things that kind of theme through the thematic through what you shared. When it comes to education and training, what's required for your position? And then what educational background do most have in your field? And Megan, do you want to start with this one, please?
Yeah, I think most, and I'm not saying every, because there are some major people on the air who don't necessarily come with a college education, but most would have a BA. Oftentimes, unless you're an expert and you have a niche, like if you're a political commentator or if you're in sports, you come from some sort of either comm or journalism background. For myself, I did end up graduating from USC with a comm major, as a comm major. I did everything journalistically, everything extracurricularly, I should say, in journalism, but I never was a journalism major. And why I look back, and at the time, and this all came down to, it was a decision I made because I wanted to finish in 2 years as a transfer student. I only had the money. I didn't even have the money to be at USC, but after taking out loans and doing all of that, I knew I needed to finish in 2 years. And so going the comm route was best for me. And then just working my tail off with internships and working at Annenberg TV News, and then auditioning to be an anchor and a reporter, a weather person, all of that I felt would give me enough to get my feet wet in the industry. And that's what I did. I wouldn't look back for 1 second, because I think everything you really need to know, you learn on the job in my industry. And that is just A lot of it is common sense. A lot of it is just being well read in the topics you're discussing. A lot of it is just not stuff you necessarily learn in a classroom, because you can and you will learn that when you're on the job. So that's where I get my background from. So as a comm major again, and then my recommendation would just be intern the heck out of whatever city you're in, wherever you're at. It doesn't matter if you're at a small university. Hey, better yet, my thing is, and sometimes I feel like I still have an intern mentality, which isn't a bad thing. And I hope I never lose that, where it's like, you just like stay curious and you want to always be the hardest worker in the room, because that will hopefully in time get seen. And when you are an intern, and I tell so many young people who slide into my DMs, who email me, who I see out in the street, you know, what would you recommend? My thing is, utilize this opportunity in school. Like, you have this golden card that screams, I'm a young person who's hungry, let me in. And I remember being so hungry, and there's that fine line between being really hungry and annoying, and being really hungry and ambitious and just the right kind of persistent. And you don't ever want to cross that. But I remember knocking on my general manager's door at ABC 7 here in Los Angeles as an intern. I had no business walking in there saying, here's my reel, can you take a look and critique me? But I'm so glad I did, because I got the best advice in that room that day. And I think I remember going in saying, hi, I'm an intern here. Not sure if you know me, want to shake your hand. Here's my card, and had a tangible business card. Maybe that's not a thing anymore, but when I was in college, it was a thing, right? I had this business card made. And so they remember you. Even if you call up one day, I'm the girl with that card, they're going to remember you. Make them remember you. And just be really open and honest. Hey, I understand that I have to leave this market, or whatever it is in your career. I have to leave this market in order to one day be back in Los Angeles. But can you give me some sound advice? Can you take a look at my tape? She rolled the tape, she looked at it, and she gave me some sound advice. It was very basic, but I look back now and I always look back to those moments. Like, I would never think of doing that as someone who is an employee. So you can't do that. When you're an intern, you have this golden card to go into any room and say, I'm an intern, what do you think? And so utilize that. That is, to me, the best education is in the real world. And at least that's in the entertainment industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I like that golden ticket analogy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Megan said, and just how valuable internships are. It's not something you need to wait until your senior year of college. You should, as soon as you know what you want to do, start applying. And once you get one internship, go for another and go for another. I also interned in radio when I was in college, and I learned, oh, I never want to have a career in radio. And that's great, because you can learn all sorts of things when you're an intern. Mm-hmm. And the other part about education is to make sure that you are getting some training. Like, for example, at LACC, we're a career technical education program, and we specialize in hands-on training. So when students come to our program, they don't have to wait 4 semesters to get their hands on a camera. As soon as they step into my TV studio, they're learning everything from control room equipment to how to operate studio cameras. And this is tangible training that you can put on your resume, that you can talk about when you're in your internship, and that really helps you figure out where you thrive. Because you might not know, you might need a chance to try studio work, try control room work, try doing single camera stuff, try editing, and figure out which ones really excite you the most, and then keep moving towards those paths. I will say that having a bachelor degree never let me down. It's not 100% necessary in our field, but it's absolutely something that will support you in your career goals moving on up. But most importantly is to find a program that really suits what you want to learn. And if you have to take some general ed classes along the way, that's okay too. Turns out understanding psychology is also a great trait, will never let you down. I really haven't used my astronomy knowledge too much, except for when I'm stargazing. But the point is, you're going to get something out. Whatever you put into these programs, you're going to get something out of it. So an AA, an associate's degree, a certificate, a bachelor's degree, these are always great, not to just have in your pocket, but to put on your resume, because it shows that you can make a commitment and you can fulfill that commitment too. So I strongly recommend looking into programs that fit your interests, and just go for it.
Thanks, Jen. All right, Barbara, what would you like to add?
Just honestly, plus one to what they both said about interning, especially, and in entertainment in particular, having that hustle is critical. It just really is critical. And, I think for me, I very specifically remember when I was just starting out in PR and I was an assistant. I was doing a lot of administrative work, but we were launching a new show on Disney Channel. It was for, it was on, I think it's called Disney Junior now. At the time it was called Playhouse Disney. And we hadn't really put together a media action plan. And I was like, I'd seen them and I was like, I'm just going to go home. It was like a weekend. And I was like, I'm just going to take a stab at this. And it's not something that an admin would normally do. And I was like, I'm just going to go. And I read a couple of examples of former of shows that we had launched before and looked at their plans. And I just kind of took a stab at it. And it was messy and it was, you know, it was a little all over the place. But I went in on Monday morning and I emailed my boss and I said, you know, I just thought I would try this just to see what you think. What do you think about this plan? I'd love to get your feedback on it. And ultimately, that was what got me promoted from being her assistant to becoming a junior publicist, because she saw that I had taken that, you know, I had been watching, I'd been paying attention, I'd been listening, and I was like really showing like, hey, I'm willing to go and, you know, go the extra mile and give something a shot, even if it's not right, that's okay. And that was kind of like that really pivotal moment where I think she saw that like I wanted it. And it was an example of hustle. And I think that in entertainment is really critical. Finding someone who sees something in you, and if you trust them and you feel like it's, even if you don't have a perfect relationship, just showing them that you are ready and willing to take an extra step. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know exactly what you're doing, but that you're going to try. But going back to education, I mean, I think for me, I have a BA in English literature, and I do think that what has helped me with that particular major is it was very focused on writing and critical thinking. And I do think that even though I'm not writing these like, you know, academic papers or anything like that, because I have to do a lot of press releases and I have to, a lot of what I do in my job involves different types of writing. Sometimes it's talking points. Sometimes it's, you know, a deep analysis of something, but usually it's a little lighter than that. But being able to know how to differentiate between different tones, different styles of writing, and having that comfort level with it was very helpful to me as an English major. So, you know, an English major is a very broad major. People can go in a lot of different, you could be a teacher, you could be a lawyer, you could go into entertainment, you could go into publicity and comms work. But what it does prepare you well for is you do a lot of writing, and being a comfortable writer and communicator will always, I think, serve you well. So I think that there's plenty of other ways that you can hone your writing skills, but I think if you go into many jobs where you have a certain comfort level with being an effective communicator, both verbally and on paper, it's never going to work against you. So.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, so those English classes you take actually make a difference, people. Note that they actually make a difference. But yes, I also hear this level of, you know, you all have shared this level of confidence that you've built, this level of taking a chance in a professional manner, that, again, the golden ticket piece, and also knowing like the right way to ask for help and to ask for feedback, I think is just crucial, and absolutely taking advantage of every opportunity you can and showing that you'll never be outworked. I think that that's a big part of what y'all shared. The reality check now. So many students will tell me, you know, or tell their school counselors, I want to be this because I like yada yada. And when we talk to them about, you know, that's one little sliver of what that person actually does. This is kind of the reality check. So describing a typical day, what kind of hours do you work? What's your environment like? And I know where you might be right now. Can you kind of go back and also share what it was like as an entry level person? And Jen, maybe you can start off. You've shared some of the stories, but please kick it off.
Sure. Nobody wants to hear how much time I spend on emails as a department chair. So I'll talk about my career in sports broadcasting. And when it started off as a production assistant, or what we call PAs. And PAs are like the least glamorous job, but probably the most helpful people on set. And they're really long days, like 12 hours minimum, pretty low pay, right? These days a PA gets about $200 for a 12-hour day. And you're expected to be there first person on set. You might be doing anything from COVID safety monitoring, making sure everybody's submitted their tests or wearing their mask. You might be, being a runner where you have to go out and get the breakfast foods. You have to go out and we used to make copies, but a lot of times these days it's like running for a new cartridge of ink, running to get something for the art department, really just running around doing things as efficiently as possible. And then making sure that you're able to help out whichever areas you're either assigned to or that need you for the day. So for set PAs, you might be babysitting the craft services table, and that's okay. Take pride in that. Make sure that your craft services table is well stocked, organized, clean. You're there with a smile under your mask, you're smiling with your eyes, and that people know that you're taking pride in your work. And there will always be opportunities where people want to talk to you, whether they're, in between sips of coffee or they're wrapping some cable, and they're often going to ask you, so what do you want to do? Be prepared to answer that question. Don't just say, oh, I don't know. Have an idea in mind. And your answer can change from each person you meet. That's fine. One week you want to be an editor. The next week you want to be in development. As you're trying to figure out what it is you want to do, explore what it means to get to that dream job and ask people what they're doing. I'm really interested in writing, so I'd love to get to learn more about development. Look at their name tags, take note of who they are, what they're doing, and then ask them a question or two. Don't bug them to death. They probably only have 5 minutes of time. And then when they leave, take some notes. It's great to actually bring a notepad and a pen or a piece of paper to your job so that when you're taking notes, people know that you're not just on your phone and they think you're texting or scrolling through Instagram. Be proactive, be observant. And as you're doing these lower level, entry level jobs, keep in mind that you're getting a return on this investment of your time through the networking, through the knowledge you're building, through your resume bullet points that you're building, and then use those steps to get you to where you want to go. I didn't stay a production assistant forever. I didn't stay an editor forever. When I took the jump from being in the editing bay to the truck doing technical director work, it was very long days, again, 12-hour days, getting there early, spending a whole lot of time setting up, quite a bit of time sitting around waiting for the sport event to actually happen. And then it's like 2 hours of intense focus where you got to be on your game. You might not be able to get up and take a bathroom break or a water break for those entire 2 hours. So be prepared for it. Have every kind of layer you need because it might be cold in the truck and hot outside and you have no idea where you're going to be placed that day. But be ready to work, be observant, and most importantly, be friendly, be likable. Show up with a good attitude because those are the things people are going to remember. And nobody's ever going to not usually. Sometimes maybe you'll get yelled at or somebody will tell you to your face what you're doing wrong. Most of the time they won't. They just won't tell you and you won't get rehired. So make sure that you are just being as pleasant and observant and as helpful as you can without being annoying. That's been that fine balance is something that you'll figure out every time you get your foot on set or anytime you're working on a production, and you'll just keep building that knowledge, which is really important to always keep learning.
Thanks, Jen. How about Barbara?
Yeah, I was just thinking a little bit when I first started and specifically in entertainment PR. And I think a lot of the days are like typical office hours, 8 to 5, 9 to 6, but not really. So, when I was first starting out, it was a lot of admin work. And as I started to kind of progress in the job, I noticed that my boss, usually between the hours of 6 and 7:30, that was when she would kind of unplug and detach a little bit. And it was like a really great opportunity to kind of engage with her about all sorts of things, just peppering her with questions about what we do and what a publicist does and how to run a red carpet or how to set up an event or, all these little things where she really didn't have time to kind of show me or train me during the day. But during this kind of peak hours, and it was always after hours, I would get these little nuggets from her. She would kind of relax a little bit and we just start chatting. And I remember there was one time in particular when the president of Disney Channel strolled in around 6:45, and Patty, my boss, and I were having one of these little chats. And he strolled in and she said, "Oh, you know my assistant Barbara." And he said, "Oh," and we ended up in this long conversation. I don't even remember about what. We were kind of just shooting the breeze. But the next day I saw him in the hallway and he remembered who I was. And when Patty was, she was out a few months later, he really leaned on me for a few things, and it gave me an opportunity to show him what I could do. And, it's those little moments. I think entertainment publicity is very relationship oriented. And so building those critical relationships, and not just with like the power players, but with everyone around you, because, the person at the desk next to you may be in a year from now, running the show at the next big studio, or maybe they wrote some amazing script. So I think that, as far as sort of the day-to-day goes, I really did find there was this kind of sweet spot for me later in the day, early evening, where I had a chance to kind of develop some relationships. And so that was something that, it was, yeah, it was missing, I guess, prime dinner hour or whatever, but it was worth it. And it wasn't every night. But I think making the decision to be intentional about developing strong relationships, is so important. It's right up there with having that hustle as well. Developing good, strong relationships with people who know that you're willing to go the extra mile and they just like to be around you, and showing a little bit of, kindness, showing that you're willing to go above and beyond, that you can be trusted, really goes a long way. So.
Great, Barbara. Thank you.
Sure.
Megan.
Yeah, I think Jen and Barbara, we all want to echo what each other are saying, because we get it. We're in different parts of this industry, but what I remember, I'm having flashbacks, Barbara, from what you're saying, to being a young person working your way up in this business. If it takes a lot to earn someone's trust, I learned, and it can go away like that. So I think it's really important, and that's in any aspect of life. I'll tell you, as you get into your industry, whoever's watching right now and dreaming about an industry outside of entertainment, there is an entire world outside of entertainment, but the same sort of lessons learned remain true. And when you're coming up in this business, you are going to oftentimes, if you become someone who is trusted, or a little intern, or I was also a PA to a longtime anchor woman in this town. When I was after my internship with George Pinocchio at ABC7, they were like, "Megan, we really think in this last semester you should go try to be an intern somewhere else, because it's been 3 semesters and you know so many people here. Like, you have the relationships. We want to see for you something else develop." And so I had something brewing over at Channel 29, which is the duopoly CBS KCAL. And I went over there and I became the personal intern to Laura Diaz, who, again, longtime news anchor in this town. When I was growing up, the first Latina in primetime television, we had the same mole, like all these things growing up. I wanted to be Laura Diaz, and the fact that I was able to be her personal intern, and how that happened. Quick story. While I was at USC, I was in downtown as a waitress at El Cholo, the new El Cholo that would open across the street from the then Staples Center. And Laura would frequent it. I recognized her obviously as my idol. I made sure, and this all goes back to the determination thing, I made sure that the hostesses knew I was going to serve that woman's table. They're like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it." And in my head, I'm going, this is my key to becoming an intern. I was the best server I could possibly be to her, bringing in her food hot, bringing in her beer cold, bringing in her chips on fire, bringing in her favorite salsa. This was time after time, until about the 4th time she was, "Oh, so where do you small talk?" And I was her favorite server. And I said, "I go down the street at USC. Oh, what do you want to do? What do you want to be?" I said, "Well, Annenberg, studying journalism in college." She's like, "Really?" I'm like, "I know. You're Laura Diaz. I know, you long time." And I went into the whole spiel. I've wanted to be you my whole life. She's like, "Oh my God, come be my intern." And I'm like, "Yes." And it worked, because I was the best damn server I could, excuse my French, could possibly be. I feel it was relationship. It was relationship that earned me that last internship, which turned into me at 2-9, my final semester. We became friends, but deeper than that. Like, she leaned on me as this new generation who knew everything about social media. I leaned on her to teach me everything about big J journalism. I'd go to her with the big investigative stories. I'd go to her for things that I didn't even know existed in this business. I learned so much, what it's like to be a woman in this business, what it's like to be a Latina in this industry, all the things, just by being surrounded by her and her people and earning the trust. The things I heard, the things I learned were with me. Sorry, that's my 2-year-old if you hear her right now with grandpa out there. But that led to an internship with her. And then she was at my graduation, and it became a really strong relationship to this day. And then she was like, do you want to be my PA, my personal assistant, while you're trying to find your first job after graduation? And that's what happened. And that's when I got to Vegas. What my job looked like then in Vegas, I started off as a social media producer because I could not find my first job. It's just, sometimes it takes a long time to get your first job in this TV side of things. You have to show your reel. I sent it out to all different parts of the country. Just no one was biting my reel. No one was biting the bait. No one wanted me. I was hungry. So let me go into the back door. I'm determined enough. I think I'll find my way on the air. So I went to Vegas first, pretty big market, top 50 in the country, and pretty big market to start in. And I didn't know if I'd be on air. It wasn't a guarantee. So I started as social media director, and I did what I did with Laura to all of the established anchors there in town, right? I said, hey, I'm the young one. Let me come in. Let me teach you how to do Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Let me be your rock. And I became their right-hand person that they could lean on. And then they taught me the things about being on air. And then when opportunity arose, since I was social media director, I saw on Google Analytics every Friday that something about the 13 things to do this weekend in Vegas story on our website would spike, which meant that so many people were looking at that page on our website, ktnv.com. And I went to my creative services guy and I said, hey, here's Google Analytics. The numbers show that so many people are clicking on this web page on our website every Friday. How about if I created this TV segment where it's 2 minutes and I talk about 3 of the 13 things to do this weekend, and then I push people to ktnv.com to this page. We can throw some ads on there. So then you guys get money. Money, honey. And they're like, oh, okay. So what, you want to do the whole, yeah, let me just write it, shoot it, produce it, edit it. I got with the people in the control room. I said, hey, when the cameras go off at 10 p.m., this is before the 11 p.m. newscast, can you just put it up? I put everything in the prompter. Can you just roll the prompter for me, press record? And I did that after 3 weeks. I created this whole little 2-minute segment. And I said, again, I wrote it, shot it, edited it, produced it, had one of the editors, I got good with him. And I said, can you help me edit this 2-minute piece? And I took it to them and they said, huh. And then the next Friday, they needed to fill some space in, I think it was a 6 p.m. newscast. They threw my segment and there I was in the control room watching my first segment ever roll on KTNV Channel 13, an ABC affiliate. I'm like, oh my God. Like, is this my big break? And I was just for weeks, actually, I think for a whole year, I was just that girl who talked about 13 things to do this weekend. I became on air as that. Then they wanted me and that was only on Fridays. They wanted me nightly for an I Contribute Minute, which meant that I was the digital girl. I saw all of these photos coming in every day. Someone who just had a baby, someone who saw a cool rainbow, someone who first day of school. And they're like, can you make a nightly segment with people's photos of like weaving together a 60-second story? Sure. There I was, nightly now live, talking about the I Contribute Minute and telling people, if you want to submit your photos, go to our Instagram. Like, it became a whole digital, full social TV experience. So I became that girl. And then we launched a talk show. They wanted someone who was the digital person on air. So I became a daily talk show host. They wanted someone to fill in anchor because I had been on the air. I fill in there. So here I am in Vegas 4 years later, having done everything on air, and I knew behind the scenes. And then OK Magazine was launching a TV show called OK TV, and they needed a correspondent in Vegas, and it was airing on ABC, my affiliates. They said, how about that girl who does like the social stuff and who does the on-air talk show? Can we have her go to some red carpets? So there I was on a nationally syndicated TV show. One thing led to another. I did all these things after 4 years, and my agent, I'd gotten an agent at some point, and she was like, you need to get some more news under your belt. So that's who recruited me, was the ABC affiliate in Sacramento to be the main morning anchor. I did that. And then that's when KTLA called 2 years later into my 3-year contract and said, is that girl ready to come home? And this is where I've been for 3 years. So start off, just get your foot in the door with whatever you want. And if you're hungry enough, you'll find a way to do what you want to do. Now, as a morning TV reporter, Mondays and Tuesdays are my weekends. Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, I work the weekday morning show. I get up at 2:30 to 3 a.m. I find out what my assignment is for the day, and I'm on the air by 5 a.m., some days earlier, some days later. I go straight from my home and I drive straight to the scene. Because of COVID, we stopped being able to go into the news vans with our photographers. It's actually worked out. I think it's the new way because I can save some time, sleep a little bit more, and just go straight to the scene. And then when I'm done with my last hit, I go live. They tell me my hit times. I'm usually once an hour. After my 10 o'clock hit, I'm like 10:04. If I'm at the top of the show, I'm done. I'm like, all right, have a good day. Send my story notes, wrap up the day, and I do it all over again the next day. I work the weekend show. We're live on the air at 6 until 11. I hit once an hour. So that's my life. I work really early, but I get home by 11:30, 12. I relieve my babysitter, and then I can be a mom the rest of the day. And I take a nap when baby takes a nap, and here I am.
That's a crazy start. I love hearing it. And thank you for giving some of your weekend, which is today, to us. So appreciate it.
It's all good.
Today's Tuesday, right? Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, it's really interesting to hear the reality of positions and having students realize you don't get to just, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of wanting it, and it takes a lot of outshining others. So what are you going to do? So I always want to know this question. Okay, so our students who are on these calls can be anywhere from 6th grade to a couple years in college. They need to figure out, and it's always like, okay, so they say I need experience. They say I need these things. How do I get in there? They also have the opportunity to take college classes while they're in high school. It's technically for free. The kids don't have to pay for it. They're not free because they come out of taxes, guys. But technically, that hindsight being 2020, if you could go back and talk to yourself career-wise and speak with yourself in 9th grade, what would you tell yourself when it comes to figuring out and getting ahead? And Barbara, we'll kick this off with you. I know it's kind of a big one, but
Yeah, a lot. Just trying to think of like boiling it down to the essence of, I think, honestly, I think I would tell myself to take a breath and to not be so caught up in feeling like I have to make the right, perfect decision right away. Meaning, as a freshman in high school, if I got, obviously grades are important, grades matter, but if for some reason I'm struggling in a class and I don't get the result I want on a test, it doesn't mean that my entire future is crushed. It means that, go back, look to see maybe where you struggled, figure out a course correct, but always know that like one little decision that you make is not going to impact the rest of your life. It's the sum total of lots of little decisions that you make. And I think I tell myself to relax a little bit, enjoy the ride, and try and take some risks, because I was one of those kids in high school who was I was just very anxious about every little thing that I did. I thought that one little wrong move, that I'd never go to college, which would mean I wouldn't have a good life. And I think that I was so anxious that I didn't really take time to give some thought to what I really loved and what I really enjoyed. That came later, but during my high school years, it was a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And I think that, yes, it's important to think about your future. Yes, it's important to set yourself up well so that you have choices. But I also think that, I don't know if it was Megan who said this earlier. Someone said something about like, the idea that you have to know exactly what it is that you want, and that your life is going to go in so many different directions and lots of different twists and turns. And so I think that just being open to thinking about what it is that you love and where you find your passion is critical. And I think if I could go back and talk to, 14, 15-year-old me, I'd just say, hey, pay attention to the things that are bringing you joy right now, and think a little bit about why and what you can do to, explore that. And don't worry so much about whether you're going to get exactly there, or whether or not it's going to make a ton of money, or whether or not, yes, of course, these practical things matter. But if you can't find within what it is that you really love, it's not going to really matter, because you're just going to be kind of chasing and pursuing something that ultimately may not fulfill you. So I know that's a very kind of loosey-goosey answer, but I do think that looking to kind of see what sparks joy and see what really resonates, and take a moment to just not feel so caught up in having to chart this perfect path for yourself, and have confidence that the path will lay itself out in the way that it should, and pay attention to the things that you love and what brings you joy, and you're going to get there. So that's what I tell myself when my
Thank-
15-year-old self.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Megan, what would you like to add?
Paying attention. I like that, Barbara. I think it's true, and it goes back to what I was saying before. And the example I give to a lot of the students who reach out is always, again, what is it that you love? And if it's video games, like, don't discount that just because it's video games and people think that that's just like something you do and like you're silly for doing it if you're old. Like, there's something clearly about the video game experience you like, and get down to it. Is it controlling something in the virtual world? Is it the colors on the screen? Is it the way it makes you feel? What is it about video games and playing games is it that you love so much? Is it playing soccer? Like, what is it? Do you just love the sport? Do you love the competition? Like, anything, you find the thing and boil it down to what it is about that thing that you love so much, because I guarantee you're going to start to see a common denominator in all the things that you do, and that could lead you to what it is that you ultimately want to do, and that you'll spend the rest of your life doing and not really feeling like work. So I like what you had to say that made me think of that, Barbara. I would say to my 9th grade self, set yourself up for an opportunity to get lucky. Set yourself up for an opportunity to get lucky. A lot of times people will say to me like, oh my gosh, you were so lucky that like you got to go and just like the Oscars happened. And it was like, do you understand that I stayed in that where I didn't necessarily think I wanted to be, because I was a writer for the newspaper, the Daily Aztec at San Diego State. The reason why I wrote for the paper and the reason why I saw that flyer from the Academy and MTV that day was because I didn't really want to be a newspaper writer, but it was the only option I had, because they wouldn't let freshmen do any kind of internship. You couldn't be an intern through their TV major until you declared the major. You couldn't do that till you're a junior, and then you couldn't intern till your senior year. And I felt that held me back so much. So I did the only media thing that I knew possible on campus, which was write for the paper, the entertainment beat. And that's when I saw that newspaper thing come down. And that's when I just said, anyone here have a camera? Let's go record something. And then we submitted to MTV. You have to set yourself up for this opportunity for MTV to see you in the Academy, or else they just would have never known I existed. That ultimately catapulted my entire career, but that was only because I didn't get into USC. So when people ask me like, okay, you thought your dream was over, like, I wouldn't change it for the world, because who knows what would happen if I would have went to USC. I don't know, I just wouldn't have been as hungry, because I got what I wanted. It's because I got what I couldn't have. I didn't get what I wanted. That made me so hungry and so eager. When I got to USC, I was like 2 years of exploding with hunger that it took off. And then again, just that example of set yourself up for an opportunity to get lucky. When I was a server, I set myself up for that opportunity to be in front of Laura Diaz. And if I wouldn't have done that, if I wouldn't have just chilled and not been annoying and said in the beginning, like, oh God, I want to be you when I'm great. Like, who wants to hear that? As someone now who's on TV, like, that probably, I'm just out trying to live my life, and I don't want someone who's serving me and being like, oh my God, like drooling over me. Like, just chill and like set yourself up for an opportunity to get lucky. So that's what I would continue to tell myself. I hope you guys hear me.
Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you. And Jen, what would you like to add?
If I could hop in my DeLorean and go talk to 9th grade Jen, I would tell her, you do you. Don't worry so much about being popular, going to the cool parties, being with the cool kids. When I started 9th grade, I was a total nerd. And then somehow by the end of 9th grade, I was really just concerned about being popular and going to do all the fun stuff. And then sophomore and junior year, like, school wasn't even a focus. It wasn't until I jumped back into senior year that I was like, oh, wait a minute. yeah, no, I really do want to, succeed. And I really am smart. I like learning. I like being the top of the class. I like getting straight A's. And it was really kind of like a full circle moment where I came back and wasn't quite as concerned about what other people thought, what I was doing on the weekend. So I was more concerned about doing what made me happy, because I saw a lot of those friends who were just partying, like, drop out of high school. And they ended up going down a completely different path that I'm very glad I veered off of, so that I went to college and I had that great work ethic and was able to really focus on things that excited me. And that was really something that I would tell ninth grade Jen is, thank God there wasn't Instagram and TikTok and Facebook back then. I can't imagine how much harder that would have been to just deal with all the social pressures. So don't worry about the social pressure. Just you do you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm very happy there was no social media when I was a kid too. In terms of that, in life is so much bigger than high school. Hard to feel that way when you're in it, or middle school. But once you get past it, you get to have that hindsight that we're talking about. So thank you, ladies. In terms of, I haven't had any questions come in. If you have any questions for our amazing panel, please throw them in the chat. I know I have a question, Megan, for you being on air. How is it to walk into a situation and not know what you're going to have to come into? Like, I see you on TV and you're going to this event and that event, whether it's tailgating or whether it's something more serious and kind of scary sometimes even. How do you prepare for that?
I make it a point every day, well, really every night before I go to bed, to scour through my emails, because I'm busy being a mom, busy being a wife, busy being a woman, whatever, trying to figure out what I'm going to wear. My hair's right, all the things. It's like you have a story to tell, So every night before I go to bed, I scour through the emails. What is being covered in the 11 p.m. newscast? When I was in Sacramento and I was the morning anchor, I would watch the news while getting dressed. So you can understand like what the state of the world is when you're getting ready to go live. But when you're a reporter and you're not having to anchor all these different stories and you're really just focusing on one, oftentimes what is talked about at night, if you're the first reporter, second reporter, third reporter in the morning, you're going to get one of those stories. But how do you move it forward? How do you move that story forward in the early hours of the morning? So you start to rattle in your brain. If it's a crime scene, if there was a shooting that happened at night, likely in the morning, it's going to be a follow-up. Did we have a chance to talk to any of the family members? Think in my head, do I have any connections in that community from stories I've covered in the past? Let me look through my phones. I'll always make sure if I save a number, I put like the city, just because I know that's the first thing I'm going to do when I want to look for that contact the next time. A lot of times it's breaking news, right? What you get in the morning is something that happened overnight. No one's covered it before. So this is your opportunity to gather the nuts and bolts. It used to be a notepad and pen, right? For reporters. Now it's my phone and my notes section. And I never erase a story. So I can go back 3 years and see the story. I put the date, the address, the contacts I used that morning. And you just start. For me, it's all about bullet points. And it's something that actually Wendy Birch, when I was an intern, I got a scholarship through her foundation at the time, who's now a reporter at KTLA. She's like, obviously the Wendy Birch. And I've had an opportunity to work with her in real time, but she was one of these people who talked on a panel when I was in college. And she had always said, don't ever try to memorize anything. When you try to memorize something and you're going live, you're going to screw yourself up. It's about truly authentically knowing the information or not. And that's the story, right? And it's nuts and bolts. It's just, what's your location? Like, I literally have like a list in my head that I can see, like your location, the time of whatever the incident happened, who was involved, has anyone died, how many are injured, how can people help? It's just this list, and everyone has a different rhythm, but I use this to take my notes. When I know the camera is off of me and we're in video, then I'll look at my notes and kind of reference the bullet points into a conversation. And then I know, because the director, as Jen was talking about, like the behind the scenes people, they're in my ear, in my IFB, going, okay, on cam, in video. So I can kind of determine what the TV screen looks like. So it's a good experience for the viewer. But the preparation in breaking news is different than when you see me at those events. When you see me like tomorrow, I already know, because I'm the feature reporter on Wednesdays and Fridays. I know what my feature is the day before. So I already got the notice. Tomorrow I'm going to be at the Quinceañera Expo. I'm going to be talking about quinceañeras and talking about how the Bay Expo happening Sunday. But tonight what I'm doing is like, I'm looking at the history of quinceañeras, even though it's of my culture. I like to know the nuts and bolts of things. So I want to know the history of quinceañeras. Why do we have quinceañeras in the Mexican culture? This and that, and I'll start to formulate a story. So when I go live, it's just of me. It comes out of me because I've done the research. And then when you see me with the fans and the viewers, that's all just in the moment authentic. That's my bread and butter. I love being with the people. I'm a woman of the community, being that I grew up here and all my family's from SoCal, and I just love the spirit of the community. So I love just going up to random people, whatever the story is, you know, if it's talking about the Rams going to the Super Bowl, like, whose house? Rams house. Okay, what are we gonna, you know, and you just like get in the mode, and that's just in me. That's my favorite kind of reporting, is the impromptu, because I feel like I can have a conversation and carry a conversation with anyone, any walk of life. You know, that's part of the human experience to me. So I could go on forever.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I think we have a shy audience tonight, so it's kind of quiet. But I realize it's 6:06. We're over time, but we had such a good conversation. I'm sorry I didn't watch the time more closely, but I want to say thank you, you amazing panel. Like I said earlier, everyone had a day. Everyone had a day of whatever your day entailed, and you made time for our PUC school students. So I'm really, really appreciative of your time giving back to our community. Students, please show your respect however you'd like to, but we have a 2-minute survey. If you could click the link in the chat and complete the survey, students, we'd greatly appreciate it. And with that being said, it's 6:07. Thank you for letting us go over. Megan, Barbara, Jen, you were amazing, and so appreciative of you. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, take care.
Bye, Dawn.
Thank you, students. Thank you for completing the survey. Again, so appreciate your time for being with us today. Please take 2 minutes and complete that survey. We read every single comment. Alejandro and Erica, thank you for being here. Thank you in advance for completing the survey. And I hope to see you at next week's Legal Careers webinar. Have a great rest of the day.